Most gardeners think digging improves soil. It feels productive, it looks clean, and it gives the impression you're resetting the bed for better growth. But here's the reality. Every time you dig, you're breaking the very system that makes plants thrive. When you turn soil, you disrupt microbial life, expose organic matter to rapid breakdown, and collapse the natural structure that roots depend on. The result isn't better growth, it's unstable soil, faster nutrient loss, and weaker plants over time. Now, before I show you what actually happened after 30 days of no-dig, there's one small change that made a noticeable difference in how this system performed. I started using a 4-litre electric composter for kitchen to consistently produce stable compost from daily waste. The reason this matters is simple. No-dig relies heavily on surface feeding. If your compost isn't ready or consistent, the whole system slows down. This tool helped me avoid using half-broken material that can actually harm plants. I'll leave the exact one I use in the description if you want to check it out. But the key here is not the tool, it's having a reliable way to feed your soil without disturbing it. So I set up a real test, 2 identical beds, same crops, same sunlight, same watering. One bed was managed traditionally with light digging and mixing. The other was strictly no dig, no turning, no tilling, just layering compost on top. And the first thing I noticed wasn't what I expected. The no-dig bed looked slower in the beginning. Seeds took slightly longer to establish. Early growth wasn't as aggressive. And if you're used to fast, visible results, this is where most people quit and say it doesn't work. But that early slowdown tells you something important. The soil isn't being forced, it's stabilizing. In the dug bed, nutrients are immediately available because everything is mixed and exposed, but that also means they're lost faster. In the no-dig bed, nutrients are released gradually as microbes break down organic matter at the surface. And this is where most gardeners misunderstand the method. No-dig is not about doing less work. It's about doing the right work at the right layer. Instead of mixing compost into the soil, you apply it on top about 3 to 5 centimeters thick and let natural processes pull nutrients down. Earthworms, microbes, moisture movement, they do the work for you. But here's the part nobody talks about. If your soil is already poor, no dig alone won't fix it quickly. In my test, the no-dig bed started catching up around the second week. By day 20, plant color was deeper, leaves were thicker, and overall growth became more consistent. By day 30, the difference was clear. The dug bed had faster early growth, but signs of stress, some yellowing, uneven size, and more sensitivity to watering. And this leads to one of the biggest advantages of no-dig: moisture stability. In the no-dig bed, moisture stayed more consistent. The top layer of compost acted like a sponge, reducing evaporation and keeping conditions stable. Now here's where things get interesting. And this is something I didn't expect until I saw it repeatedly. Weed pressure dropped significantly. Most people think no-dig means more weeds because you're not turning the soil. But in reality, digging brings buried weed seeds to the surface where they can germinate. But let's be clear, this only works if you apply compost properly. A thin layer won't suppress weeds effectively. You need enough coverage to block light and create a barrier. That's why I stick to that 3 to 5 centimeter range consistently. Now let's talk about a mistake that can ruin this method completely. Using unfinished compost. This is where most no-dig setups fail. If you apply compost that's still breaking down, it can pull nitrogen from the soil and slow plant growth. You'll see pale leaves, weak stems, and poor development. That's why consistency matters. You need compost that's stable, not raw. And this is where having a reliable composting system changes everything. because once your input is consistent, your results become predictable. Now let's address something a lot of experienced gardeners question. What about root crops? Carrots, beets, anything that grows underground. Do they actually perform well in no-dig systems? But here's the catch. If your base soil is compacted and you don't fix that first, no-dig won't magically solve it in 30 days. It's a long-term improvement strategy, not an instant fix. Now let's talk about long-term implications, because this is where no-dig really proves its value. Soil biology. When you stop disturbing the soil, microbial networks stay intact, fungal pathways develop, earthworm activity increases, and nutrient cycling becomes more efficient. This isn't something you fully see in 30 days, but you start noticing the signs. Better soil texture, more life, and more resilience. In one section of my no-dig bed, I found significantly more earthworms compared to the dug bed. That alone tells you the system is moving in the right direction. And here's something most people overlook. Less work doesn't mean less effort. It means, well, different effort. Instead of digging, you're focusing on feeding the soil, maintaining coverage, and just observing conditions. It's a shift in mindset. Now let's get to the real question. Does no-dig actually work? Yes, but not in the way most people expect. In my own gardens, I've started transitioning more beds to no-dig, not because it's trendy, but because it creates consistent results over time. And that's what serious gardening is about, not quick wins, but reliable systems. If you're still digging every season, you're resetting progress without realizing it. If you found this useful, subscribe to AgriProfit Hub. There's a lot more we're going to test and break down, from soil systems to real-world growing strategies that actually produce results. And share this with someone who thinks digging is the only way to grow, because now you've seen what happens when you stop fighting the soil and start working with it. Once you understand how soil biology really works, everything changes.